Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at the struct lab from the App Development with Swift book, and this is a long one, it's 10 pages, so it's going to be a few parts. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? So, of course you have to read the chapter first, but this is me helping you with the lab as well. So let's get started. Imagine you are creating some kind of app for monitoring location. Create a GPS struct with two variable properties, latitude and longitude, both with a default value of 0.0. All right, so how do we do that? So to create a struct, we write the keyword struct, and then we write the name. So they're telling us call it GPS. All right, and then curly brace and a closing curly brace. Great. So we've created a struct. It's empty right now. Okay, so they tell us to create two variables called latitude and longitude. So let's go ahead and do that. Var latitude, and they're saying both of them have a value of 0.0 as a default, and var longitude equals 0.0. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So we've created a struct called GPS with two variables, latitude and longitude, both have a value of 0.0. Fantastic. Great, so moving on. Create a variable instance of GPS called someplace. It should be initialized without supplying any arguments. Print out the latitude and longitude of someplace, which should be 0.0 for both. Okay, so how do we create an instance? Well, okay, so we're gonna go var, and they're telling us call it someplace, so I'm gonna go someplace, and it's gonna be an instance of GPS. So after we do that, we have to go curly brace, bracket, bracket. Now, this is initializing it. So if I were to do this, that would be initializing it with the actual arguments, except they specifically say it should be initialized without supplying any arguments. So when they say that, they're talking about this. Okay, so that's me initializing someplace as an instance of GPS without supplying any arguments. Great, and then it says print out longitude and latitude. Okay, so go print someplace dot, and I've got two properties in someplace, latitude and longitude, dot latitude, and print someplace dot longitude. Great, and it should print 0.0 and 0.0. Fantastic. Okay, moving on. Change someplace latitude to 51.51.514004 and longitude to that number, then print an updated value. All right, so how do you do that? Pretty easy. Okay, so I'm gonna go someplace dot latitude equal 51.514004, and someplace dot longitude equals what does it say, 0.125226, and then print out the updated value. So print someplace dot latitude and print someplace dot longitude, and I should have the updated values in a sec. There we go. All right, it's working fine. All right, so moving on. Now imagine you are making a social app for sharing your favorite books. Create a book struct with the variables properties title, author, pages, and price. The default value for both title and author should be an empty string. Pages should be default to 0, and price should be 0.0. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So struct, same thing, book. I'm gonna go nice and quick here. Var title equals empty string, var author equals empty string, var pages equals 0, and var price equals 0.0. All right, so that's a struct of a book. Okay, now create a variable instance of book called favorite book without supplying any arguments. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Var fav book equals book without any arguments being supplied. Print out the book title of favorite book. Okay, fav book dot title. Well, I'm printing it. It should be empty if I'm not mistaken. because I didn't give it anything. Okay, so obviously printing the favorite book.title will give me an empty title. Does it currently reflect your favorite book? No. Change all 4 properties of your favorite book to reflect your favorite book. Okay, we could do that. So let's go ahead and do that. So favbook.title equals The Godfather. Favbook.author equals Mario Puzo. I think that's how you spell his name. Pages. I'm actually not sure, so I'm just gonna put 600 here. And favbook.price. I'm not sure about that either, so I'm gonna put $19.99. And that's pretty much it. Change all. Then using the properties favorite book, print out facts about the book. So that's pretty easy. So print my favorite book in the world is, and we're going to use string interpolation here, is favbook.title, and it was written by, and I'm gonna say favbook.author, and it is a large book with gonna say the amount of pages here, favbook.pages, and it currently runs for, I'm just making this up obviously, favbook.price. So if we print this out, it should read my favorite book in the world is The Godfather, and it was written by Mario Puzo, and it's a large book with 600 pages, I should have said. 600 pages, and it currently runs for $19.99. Anyways, that's a sentence that kind of takes all the values from this favbook struct, or rather an instant of the struct book. All right, moving on to the next page. Okay, so your fitness tracking app wouldn't be much of a fitness tracking app if it couldn't help users track their workout. In order to track a user's run, you'll need to have some kind of data structure that could hold information about the workout. For the sake of simplicity, you'll focus specifically on running workouts. Create a running workout struct. It should have a variable. It should have variables, properties for distance, time, and elevation. All 3 properties should have a default value of 0.0. So let's go ahead and do that. Struct. We're gonna call it running workout, and we're gonna give it 3 variables: var distance, and it has a value of 0.0. Var time 0.0. Var elevation 0.0. Okay, great. Moving on, create a variable instance of running workout called first run. So var first run equals running workout without supplying any arguments. Okay, we did that. Print out all 3 properties. Okay, print first run dot distance, print first run dot elevation, print first run dot time. Okay, we're good here. This is a good example of when using default values is appropriate, seeing as all running workouts start with distance, time, and elevation change of 0. Okay, now imagine that throughout your throughout the course of the run, you go a distance of 2,396 meters in 15.3 minutes and gain 94 meters of elevation. Update the values of first run properties accordingly. Print a statement about your run using the values of each property. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So first run dot distance equals 2396. First run dot time equals 15.3, and first run dot elevation equals 94, and we're gonna print everything. I'm gonna print everything in one line here. First run dot distance, comma, first run dot elevation, and first run dot time, and I should have that in a sec. There we go, 2396, comma, 0.0, comma doesn't show because there's a new variable 94 and 0.0, and then the time is 15.3. Okay, great. That was an easy one. Let's move on to the next page. Okay, so we're in the third page here. If you complete the exercise struct instances and default values, you create a GPS struct with default values for properties for latitude and longitude. Create your GPS struct again, but this time do not provide default values. Both properties should be of type double. So how do you do that? Again, using struct, we're going to call it GPS again, and curly brace, and we're going to give it two variables, latitude, except we're not going to give it a value of 0.0 like before. We're going to do type annotation and say it's a double, and longitude, and it's type double, and we don't actually have to give it a default value. Great. Now create a constant instance of GPS called someplace. So again, like last time, someplace equals GPS, and use Memberwise initializers. What that means is you open the you open the bracket, and you hit return, and essentially it'll fill this out for you. It says, listen, GPS is a struct that has two variables called latitude and longitude. I misspelled one of them. Whoops. Latitude. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay. So GPS is a struct that has two variables called latitude and longitude, and essentially what it's saying is they don't have values right now, so you got to put in some values. You got to use the Memberwise initializer to initialize latitude and longitude. So we're going to initialize latitude with 51.51404 and longitude to 0.125226. all right, and then it says print the values. Okay, pretty easy here. Print someplace dot latitude and print, oh, sorry about that, someplace dot longitude, and that should print everything for us here, right? And it does, 51.514004 and 0.125226. Great, moving on. In structs instance and default values, you also created a book struct. Create the struct again without default values. Okay, so we're creating the book struct again. So struct book, except this time we're not going to give it any values. So we're going to go title string. You got to put var here. Being silly here. Title, and it's of type string, right? Because obviously, let me just read the whole thing. Give each appropriate type, declare, obviously, declare your favorite book instance and pass the values in using the Memberwise initializer, print a statement about your favorite book. Okay, cool. So var title, var author, which should also be a string, var pages should probably be an int, and var price, since there's cents, is going to be a double. Okay. Great, and now we're gonna create my favorite book, var favorite book equals book, and we're gonna initialize it using the Memberwise initializer. Oh, sorry, title. So the title is gonna be The Godfather. The author is gonna be Mario Puzo. The pages, I forget what it was. Let's say 700, and price, let's call it 19.99. All right, and we're gonna print my favorite book dot author, and we're gonna print my favorite book dot pages, and we're gonna print my favorite book dot title, and we're gonna print my favorite book dot price. And it should say everything here. Give it a second, let it update. Okay, and here we go. We've got it printed out. Mary Bugeaud, 700 pages, The Godfather, and 1999. Okay, let's move on here. So we've got make a height struct with two variable properties, height in inches and height in centimeters. Both should be of type double. Create two custom initializers. One initializer will take a double argument that represents height in inches. The other initializer will take a double argument that represents height in centimeters. Each initializer should take the passed in value and use it to set the property that corresponds to the unit of measurement passed in. It should then set the other property by calculating the right value from the passed in value. Hint, 1 inch is 2.5 centimeters. Okay, how do we go about doing something like that? It's not so hard. So struct, and our struct is called height, and curly brace, curly brace. So we've got two variables, var height in inches, and obviously this is of type double, and we've got var height in centimeters, and this is also double. Okay, so we need to initialize both of them within the struct. So we do that by using the keyword init, and for parameters we're going to take in height in inches, right? So I'm going to call it height inches. Okay, and what we're going to do here is, obviously height in inches has to be of type double. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go self, and I'll explain what I'm doing here. Self.height in inches equals height inches. And I'm going to go self.height in centimeters equals height in inches times 2.54. Okay, and I'm gonna initiate height centi, right, of type double. And what I'm doing here, I'm gonna say, oh, I just deleted the curly brace, didn't I? Hold on, there we go. It's much better. Self dot, don't worry about it. I'm gonna explain everything here. Height in centimeters equals height centi, and I'm gonna go self dot height in inches equals height in centimeters divided by 2.54. Okay, so what am I doing here? So we're initializing it. So when someone actually goes in and initializes these two first variables, actually it's best if I go ahead and print this stuff for you to show you how it works. So let's actually move on, and I'll come back here in a sec. Now create a variable instance of height called SumHeight. So SumHeight equals height, var SumHeight equals height, and we're going to initialize, use the initializers for inch to set height to 65. So inches is right here, and we're going to set it at 65. And watch what happens here. So we've only set the inches, but if I print SumHeight dot SumHeight dot height in centimeters, and I print SumHeight dot height in inches, it'll give me both. Well, how is that possible? So SumHeight in centimeters, 165 1 centimeters, and in inches 65, obviously, because 65, and it actually says it should be 165.1. So what actually happened here? So let me explain here. Let me lower this because I have to explain this. So when we created the struct height in inches and height in centimeters, we gave them a double each, right? To initialize them, what we've done is this. We've said, listen, we're going to create an initializer for height in inches, and it's in doubles. And most of the time, these parameters are usually the same names here, but I changed it just to kind of so that it's clearer for you guys. So this function, this initializer, will take in a parameter called height inches. Okay, so whatever that number is. So what I did here is 65, right? So this 65 here actually goes in here, right? So when I initialized it, that's what the 65 is. So I said, whatever this number is, in our case 65, go and put it in height in inches. So it took that 65 that I put in here and placed it in this variable. And then what do we place in this variable? I said this variable, make it equal to whatever height in inches is, which is 65, times 2.54. Well, it turns out 65 times 2.54 equals 165.1. And I did the reverse, because had I initialized the centimeters, I said, listen, take whatever the person gives you in centimeters, right? So let's say 165.1 centimeters, put that in the variable height in centimeters. And then the height in inches, make it equal to whatever the height in centimeters is, which in our case would probably be 165, and divide by 2.54, okay? And that's pretty much it. So here, I'll explain, they actually have another example here with the centimeters. So now create a variable instance of height called myHeight, and then initialize it with your own height. Okay, so I'm gonna initialize it with centimeters to verify that the centimeters initializer works. So var my height, and I actually happen to know what my height is in centimeters. So var my height equals height, and I'm gonna initialize it, and I've got two initializers. I could initialize it in inches or centimeters. I'm gonna initialize it in centimeters, and my height is 175 centimeters. And now if I print my height dot centimeters, well, obviously it's gonna say 175 because I gave it 175. But the cool thing is, if I go print height, sorry, not height, my height, dot height in inches, I didn't give it my height in inches, but it did the math here because of this initializer, and it should spit out 68.89 inches, right? So that's what those initializers are for. So initially it's a little tricky to kind of wrap your head around it, but it's a pretty easy concept to kind of understand, and once you understand, it's quite powerful. Cool. So it does the math for you regardless if you initialize something in inches or centimeters. This is really useful for things like temperature. You've got Fahrenheit and Celsius and other things where you want your end user to just, you know, spit out one type of number, maybe in Celsius, and then your initializers will do the math and know what the temperature is in Fahrenheit as well. Cool.